Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to be looking at Alien Worlds #1 from December 1982. This is going to be the first in a series of videos where we're going to look at all of the Bruce Jones written and edited anthologies that he created for Pacific Comics in the early to mid 80s. The first one was Twisted Tales, which was his horror anthology that was even more specifically very EC inspired, EC horror comics inspired. Next came Alien Worlds, sci-fi anthology, very weird science, weird fantasy inspired. And there was one issue of a third title named Pathways to Fantasy, and that was fantasy, obviously. So we're going to be looking at all of these over the next probably couple months. And if you don't know who Bruce Jones was, he was a writer-artist. He was a really good artist. But after the first few years of his career, he just became a writer. But he came up through the late 60s, early 70s sci-fi comics fanzines. He was publishing stuff alongside Bernie Wrightson, Jeff Jones, Mike Kaluta. No relation to Jeffrey Catherine Jones, by the way. They're not related. But he really made his name at Warren Comics. He did many stories for Creepy Eerie and Vampirella. Some of the most beloved stories from Warren were by him. Just especially compared to all the other writers in the 70s, he was really stood out. Definitely more adult writing style, very complex, multifaceted characters he'd sometimes have in his stories. He would even do stuff like have unreliable narrators, use these great literary things to, he'd bring them to comics. He still had some goofy stories, as we shall see. He loved DC a lot, and in a way that was sometimes it wasn't the best thing, because he loved those twist endings. And just like EC Comics, you know, some of those stories are groaners at the end. You're like, oh God, really? He does that sometimes. But still, even in those stories, the writing is really good up to the silly ending. So let's look at the first issue. We start off with a painted cover by Joe Chiodo, who went on to be a very sought-after colorist during the whole image boom time. And he also drew a little, mostly like cheesecake art. That kind of became his niche. And I guess even then he was kind of in a cheesecake, because that's, you didn't see ass crack like that on many comic covers. I remember I bought this when I was around 14, right off the stands, and yeah, this image is kind of imprinted in my memory. I looked at this cover a lot. But it's really nice art. Just the mountains in the background. This guy knows what he's doing. I like this little lizard guy. It's very cute. Little introduction from Bruce Jones. And the first story in the first issue is The Few and the Far. And yeah, what a way to start off a science fiction series. Al Williamson drawing this. The great EC comic artist. Kind of the master of science fiction art, of American science fiction art. Another thing about Bruce Jones is his writing style is all about, the captions are almost always first-person narration of the protagonist. Instead of thought balloons, that's what captions are there for. And there's this earthling on a ship, and he's heading to meet a female earthling. Apparently in this future, there's barely any earthlings left in the universe. They were once dominant, but then through a series of intergalactic wars, the population has dwindled incredibly. So there's not many left. Because of that, earthlings are kind of almost forced to mate. Like, it doesn't matter if you don't know the person, if she's halfway across the galaxy, they're like, you got to get over there and mate with that earthling, because there's not many left. So he's en route to his bride-to-be. And the spaceship comes out of nowhere, takes a shot at him, damages his ship. Also in this future, it's kind of like open season on Earthlings. I guess because they were dominant for so long, the other aliens kind of resent them. And some planets even have bounties on humans. It's like, so it's not a good time to be an Earthling. And this also isn't surprising. He also, as an Earthling, you know, he gets shot at a lot. Just random aliens try to take him out. So they have this dogfight in space. And he lands on the planet so he can repair his ship. But as he's going down, he gets a really good shot in at the other ship and damages it. So he safely lands. And of course, there was no credits at the beginning. They kind of messed up. But you could just tell this is Al Williamson. The fucking giant mushrooms everywhere on an alien world. Total Al Williamson thing. You'd love to have toadstools everywhere in his alien planets. Some really nice early 80s Al Williamson art. He definitely, you know, none of his art, I think, after EC was as good. I think that was his prime. But this is some sweet stuff. I love this panel right here. That's really good. So I guess the ship isn't hurt that much. So it's going to take a couple days. His robots are going to repair the ship. And all of a sudden that other ship crashes really close to him, the one that he shot. He runs over. The pilot is this beautiful human woman. So he takes her out of the ship. Her spacesuit is damaged. And he keeps his gun on her, though. Because he's like, in this future, the aliens have hypno screens, which can project a false image. And he's been fooled before. So he doesn't trust her at all. Could totally be an alien who's going to kill him. She's speaking this alien language, doesn't understand. And she's pretty sleepy, I guess, after her crash. It takes a lot out of you. So he basically figures, I'll wait till she falls asleep, and she won't be able to keep up her hypno screen if she's unconscious. Sure enough, as soon as she falls asleep, she turns into this cat woman. And he kind of wants to just kill her. He doesn't want to take the chance that this is some hostile alien that's going to kill him. But he remembers that the Earthlings are allies of the cat people. So he doesn't want to start some incident. So he's sitting there thinking, pondering on the situation. And I guess his fears weren't unfounded, because she was faking being asleep. And she also had a little laser gun in her skimpy outfit. Shoots at him, doesn't kill him, but totally knocks him off his ass. And then she starts running towards the ship. He's like, oh my God, she could totally lock me out of the ship and take off, and I'm a dead man. So he aims and fires at her. I love that panel too. So many great panels in there. This is really nice Al Williamson art. It's colored by Steve Oliff, by the way. Probably one of the best colorists of the early 80s. Full painted colors. Looks good. So he hits her dead center. She's dead. And as she falls over dying, she turns into this frog alien. And he says, good Lord. And he says, it can't be. And he finds an idea on her. And he goes, no. And it turns out she's the woman he was supposed to meet to marry, his bride-to-be. So he buries her. And then his hypno screen drops. And he's a frog creature. And he hops off sadly. And I guess that's the twist of the story, is that Earthlings have evolved into these frog creatures. And we didn't realize that the whole time. And it's extra sad because there's so few Earthlings left that, you know, it's going to be a long time till he gets another shot at mating with one. Next story is Domain. Art by Val Mayerick, the 70s comic artist. He didn't just draw in the 70s, but that was pretty much his heyday. Drew a little into the 80s, and then he just seemed to drop out of comics. Drew a few things here and there. But in the early 70s, he was pretty big at Marvel. Drew a lot of monster comics. Never really did anything superhero, just usually all the weirder comics. And he had a really nice illustrative style. Definitely put in the work. He wasn't a hack. So once again, the narrator fills us in, the first person narration. And the leader of these cavemen, his name's Moloch. Moloch was leader. Moloch was law. All obey Moloch. And, he's a tyrant. He doesn't even have to hunt anymore. He makes all the other guys endanger themselves hunting. And I like this bear. I think Val Mayerick should have looked at more pictures of bears before drawing that. It's a little goofy looking. He's definitely the alpha male, Moloch. The bear rips off one of the guy's arms, and we kind of see inside the brain of Moloch by this narration. Moloch was not saddened. Dona had been obstinate lately. He broke the rules. He talked of the big tribe, and he used the forbidden words. Those who disobeyed Moloch deserved to die. So he's a bad leader. They take down the bear, and we realize too that even though all these women in the tribe are went through the mating ritual, if you will, with all the guys in the tribe, Moloch still just can sleep with any of them, which obviously pisses off the tribesmen. But it seems like they're terrified of him. They're completely cowed. So that's just the way it is. He's the total alpha male, and he's a pretty tyrannical guy. He has a little reminiscence about how he left the big tribe. And at first, all the people, they were kind of happy to leave the big tribe. They were like, ooh, this is like an adventure. But pretty soon they realized how terrible he was, and it was too late, they were stuck with him. One day they're picking berries near the forbidden zone, and he realizes one of the guys is missing. He follows him into the zone, and the guy's name is Jax, and Jax is approaching a crashed starship. And they're speaking this kind of caveman tongue, go wakena hage Jax, kena wagu. And basically Moloch is saying, you broke the rules. And he just beats him to a pulp with his club. We also realize he's pretty unhinged. He's hearing voices in his head. He thinks of the big tribe, their stupid rules and their stupid laws. And they seem to be shouting at him, pushing at him, ordering him about. And he's holding his head like he's in pain. So this guy is pretty psychotic. All of a sudden he hears a scream from the camp, and he runs out. This mastodon is just mowing through the tribe, killing people left and right. So even though he calls himself Moloch the Mighty, he knows he can't fight that thing. So he joins the rest of the tribe and flees. One of the women gets down on her knees and pleads with him. She's like, please, can we go back to the big tribe? And she uses some of the forbidden words. And I guess she gets off easy because he just slaps her. So that night, one of the women, Chloe, goes to bed with him. She gives him some strong wine before bed. When he wakes up, she's missing. He follows her to the forbidden zone and to the spaceship. And she's inside on the radio speaking perfect English. She's basically saying, Mayday, we've been marooned here for months. It was supposed to be a vacation. Miller's gone berserk, thinks he's a caveman. Moloch smashes the radio before she can deliver the coordinates. And we see just how cowed and terrified they are of him. She's just pleading with him, please, I'll do anything you want, just don't hurt me. And he just clubs her on the head and kills her. And as Moloch carries her body back to the camp, he said, it is good here, the air is sweet. He is free from the tribe and their stupid rules. Life is simple, clean. Moloch is leader, Moloch is law. All obey Moloch. So I do like this twist. So apparently these guys landed, and this guy took the chance to just make like Tarzan. and forced everyone else to go into his little fantasy by terrifying them. Oy. That's a good little story. This next one's very odd. It's a Head of the Class. Art by renowned Filipino cartoonist Nestor Redondo. And basically there's an orphanage here, the Ferguson School. And our narrator is Jeremy, one of the new enrollees. He just got there. He already mentions that he's been to every other orphanage in the solar system. So even though it doesn't look like it, we realize this is science fiction. But it takes a while to even figure out like what the hell's going on. It's very strange. Miss Ferguson's very stern. Well, she's beyond stern. We'll see in a second how stern she is. One of the kids, I guess, broke some rule. And she's like, oh, that's one demerit. You must be punished. So she orders Luther, her like second in command, to rip his finger off. Look at that. Now, we realize something's up here because they don't rush him to a hospital. He's just crying in pain. And he just has to go to bed without his supper. So, of course, Jeremy's like, what the hell's going on here? And they're like, shh, we don't want to get in trouble. Next day at dance class, this other kid falls asleep somehow during class. And Luther rips his arm off. So, later on in the showers, Jeremy's like, what the fuck's going on here? No orphanage board in the universe would stand for this. And then he says, under the Asimov law, we're supposed to be treated just like the other children. So we realize they're probably robots, if you know the Asimov law. Apparently in this world, in this setting, they make all these robot children because there's not enough children. But I don't understand why in the world you would make robot children and then stick them in an orphanage. It's just, definitely, the story doesn't really make sense. So then the next day, some other kid breaks the rules, and Luther rips his head off. And now you can clearly see the robot parts. So, like, Bruce Jones is showing his hand now. Like, okay, obviously, these are all robot kids. We get it. The camera pulls back. We see that the orphanage is all alone on this little asteroid. So he says, guys, we got to rebel against this shit. We got to do something. And he's like, we can't. There's something in Miss Ferguson's index finger. It's the key that operates the whole house. The lights, the food for our biocells. If she's dead, the house is dead. So he comes up with a plan, Jeremy. He's like, guys, I volunteer. You can rip my head off. And we'll rip off her head and we'll switch the heads. And then my brain will be in charge of the body and the finger. So they rip his head off, and this makes no sense at all. He's a real child. They're like, he was real. He was human. I thought there was a shortage of human children. And pretty gruesome, just blood flowing everywhere. So Miss Ferguson shows up, and so they just improvise. They rip off her head. One of them just says, rip off my head, guys, quick. And they throw it on Miss Ferguson's body. And to their shock, as soon as they do that, the voice coming out of this robot says, naughty, naughty children, now you must all be punished. And they're like, what the hell happened? It's still her. And she informs them that, oh, the more recent model of my robot series, the brain was put in the chest for better protection. There's nothing in this skull. So that's the stupid twist ending. Such a dumb story. But I gotta say, when I'm reading the story, first time in 30 years, I had totally forgotten it. It was really engaging. Like, Bruce Jones is really good at setting up these little quandaries and mysteries where you're like, what's going on here? I have to find out. So it's a totally entertaining story, even though it's, at the end of the day, you're like, oh man, that doesn't make any sense. Here we got Talk to Teddy, art by Tim Conrad. If you've seen any of our Epic Illustrated videos, you know of Tim Conrad. He's all over those. And there's some really nice art. There's this guy who has to travel a lot for business. He's got his own little private spaceship. An asteroid destroys a big chunk of it. So he's got to crash land on this planet. His ship's totally messed up. Poisonous gas is leaking into the cockpit, and his spacesuit has been damaged. It's ripped. So luckily, in time, he seals this breach and pumps out the poison gas. So he makes it. Look at this beautiful Tim Conrad art. Like, that's the folds and drapery on his outfit. That is some nice stuff. And even the body language. I mean, obviously, Tim Conrad, uses a lot of photo reference. But just like P. Craig Russell, he kind of reminds me of P. Craig Russell, the way they organize panels and definitely the photo referencing art. It's just like P. Craig Russell, the photo referenced art isn't lifeless. A lot of artists, when they use too much photo reference, it's not a lively, fun, cartooning style anymore. It just kind of sits there. But I think those guys both, like, it still looks like good cartooning to me. But man, look at that. That's pretty masterful illustration. So he finds out that the atmosphere isn't breathable on this planet. And he also finds out that all of the food was destroyed in the storage unit. It was damaged. So he can't go outside because the space suit is broken. And right outside the window, he can see these fruit trees. And he's already starting to get hungry. And he's like, ah, shit, I might die of starvation even before the rescue ship comes. Because he did a mayday on the radio as he was going down. So he's got nothing to do but wait and starve to death. So he looks in his bag to get some books. And he finds this robot teddy bear. It's his son's teddy bear. Traveling Teddy, the doll that goes anywhere. I guess it's this teddy bear, robot teddy bear that you just speak into a microphone and it'll do anything you ask. Any command, he'll obey. He has a little flashback of when he bought his son that teddy bear. And the kid loves it. He just totally becomes attached to it. It's pretty impressive. Even the parents are pretty impressed with how cool this toy is. Like, it really does. It seems to be able to do anything. Having that flashback, he's reminded of, like, oh, I might never see my family again. He's really almost giving up hope. But then he has an idea. He starts practicing with Teddy. And he's like, oh my God, this really works. He can stand on his head. Anything I tell him to do, he can do. So he tells Teddy to go out the airlock and get him some fruit. Yeah, these are some great panels. I love this one of Teddy walking through the airlock. His plan works. Teddy totally successfully gets fruit and brings it back. So some days pass, and he's got all the fruit he can eat. But then one day, this giant, like, pterodactyl monster scoops up Teddy. And he has another flashback, the pilot. He says, oh yeah, he remembers that Teddy has this little shock function. And so he says, shock, Teddy, shock. And it works. The monster drops Teddy, and Teddy's fine. So now he realizes, oh my God, maybe Teddy can do the repairs. Because to repair the ship, you have to go outside. So he couldn't do it. So he gives Teddy a little blowtorch, and the days pass, and Teddy fixes up all the damage. One of the last things he's fixing is in the rocket tube. And while he's doing it, the pilot gets a message from the computer saying, we are now fully functional. And he says, oh my God, I'm going to give the rockets a try. I can't believe it. And he revs up the engines and forgets that Teddy was in the rocket tube. So Teddy's the smoking wreckage. And he feels really bad about it. But even though he should be so happy that he's not going to die on this planet, all he can think about is like, oh my God, my son's heart will be broken. He goes back to the planet where he bought Teddy. Nobody even seems to know what he's talking about. So he can't find another one. He makes it home, and he's just apologizing to his son. And the son's like, but you left him there all alone. And he says, I don't want you to buy me another one. I want my Teddy right now. Which is kind of weird, because I know he's a dumb kid, but your father came home safe. He was going to be 99% chance he was going to die in that little planet. And all he cares about is that the teddy bear didn't come back. Later that night, the father's about to go to sleep and he hears a tapping on the door. And he opens the door and says, "My God!" And it's Teddy. He really is the doll that goes anywhere. I don't know how in 24 hours he made it. I don't know. He must have caught a hitchhiked on some spaceship back to Earth or something. I don't know. It doesn't really make logical sense, but it's kind of a cute, happy ending. And I like it. I just have to switch my brain off sometimes in these stories. Oh, and there you have it. There's an ad for Twisted Tales, which we'll be looking at shortly, because that's part of the Bruce Jones empire. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. I know some of the stories were a little silly, but they're all really entertaining and really fun and beautifully drawn. Bruce Jones also, one of his major skills was just a great editor. Because he could draw, he had a great eye for artists. And everything he edits is just chock full of the best artists of the day. He just really gets good artists. And he knew a lot of like hot shit artists. So even some of them would like come out of retirement, even though they were barely drawing comics, and they'd contribute. So there's a stellar lineup in all of these Bruce Jones edited comics. And we shall see. So I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope to see you next time here at the Herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.